Welcome to the Fright Lab. I'm Lucas Yoakum, and this is the 12th entry into the 2025 31 Days of Horror, 31 Days of Halloween, 31 for 31, whatever you guys want to call it. Wow, we're almost at our we're like not quite halfway through the challenge. This is great. It's been very fun, and boy, tonight I've got a movie I've been wanting to talk about. So tonight we are talking about the 2013 remake of Evil Dead. We talked about this movie and its subsequent movie, Evil Dead Rise, a little bit in our episode on the Necronomicon, and it's a movie I'm happy to circle back to because it's a movie I think about a lot when I think about horror movies. Now, we all know that remakes and reboots are unfortunately the cost of doing business in the horror world. Not just horror, sci-fi too has its problems. I know the Tron Ares came out. Allegedly, it's quite bad. I didn't have high hopes for it, so, it is what it is, I suppose. But when a remake comes out, there's always the risk of it being real bad. And I'm going to make the argument that Evil Dead 2013 is actually not. That it's actually a much better film than most people I know of want to admit. I know that it only has about a 64% positive rating on IMDb, which is better than a lot of places, I suppose, but still, I think it deserves better. So first things first, let's talk about the plot of Evil Dead 2013. It is, for what it's worth, an Evil Dead film. It has to have a dilapidated location. It has to have people in peril. It has to have the book. It has to have the incantation, and crazy shit follows. So that's a lot of what this movie is. A young woman who is preparing to go through opiate withdrawal decides to return to the family cabin with her friends and her brother in her attempt to kick. Now, under the best of circumstances, giving up heroin cold turkey, or any opiate cold turkey, would be a tall order and would be very difficult for anyone under any condition. Except some real bad things have gone down in this cabin. And a copy of perhaps the evilest book in all of cinema, the Naturom de Monto, aka the Necronomicon. And, for what it's worth, it's about to get unearthed. It seems to happen anytime the Necronomicon is involved. It's almost like the book is calling to people. Spooky, right? So, one of our friends, one of our, protagonists, makes the mistake of reading the evocation from it aloud, conjuring forth the aforementioned Evil Dead. The Kandarian demons come from the woods, possess our protagonist, and, well, it's an Evil Dead movie. Evil Dead shit happens. Before I talk about this movie in ways that I really like or ways that I think are really thought-provoking, I do have to say there's always something about Evil Dead films that I don't understand. And this is more true with the Evil Dead that are set in the woods, less true of Evil Dead Rise. I don't understand why people keep opening the book. This is true of Evil Dead Rise as well. But people always look at the book. The book is always super sinister. They want to open the book and they want to read from the book, causing all the bad stuff to happen. But think about it. Every time the book is involved, there seems to be some stuff around it in its immediate area that indicate exactly how dangerous it is. Madness, violence, decay. It's always there on some level. I mean, honestly, you take one look at a book that looks like that. Just leave the book alone and get out of the cabin. What are you doing? But it wouldn't be a horror movie. We've got to accept on some level that the book has some sinister allure, but more importantly, it's a horror movie. It's got to go that way, right? I've been thinking a lot about what we call this movie. Is Evil Dead 2013 a remake? And increasingly, I don't like that word. It is true of some films. Some films are definitely remakes. The Grudge is a remake of Ju-On. Now, it is a remake with the original director, but it is a remake for, English-speaking audiences. Okay, fine, not the worst thing that could happen, but definitely, I think, easier to watch than, say, I don't know, the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, which takes an already excruciatingly unpleasant film and makes it even more unpleasant. But it's also not necessary. It's basically shot for shot. Why would you want to watch that? I think that the 2013 Evil Dead film is not a remake of the original The Evil Dead. It has the blessing of Raimi and Campbell. They were involved in its production, and that's about as good of a thing as you're going to get for this. And yes, it has the cabin, sort of. It's basically the same location, and it has a lot of the same setup, but it's not telling the same story, right? The word I keep coming back to when I'm trying to describe this film is reiteration. The creators and the producers of the film decided to explore some of the same concepts, the same symbols, and the same devices from the original, but in a different way, in a different context. The end result is, in my estimation, new, different, and just deeply disturbing. I think 2013's Evil Dead is a deeply, deeply intense film. And one of the hardest parts of any horror film is what I tend to think of as the buy-in, you know? You have to agree to suspend your disbelief by putting on the film and giving it its full runtime. And to really appreciate it, you have to buy in. You have to go along with the film's central conceit. And this is doubly true. It is difficult to have that buy-in, doubly so, when you're dealing with something as unrelentingly ugly as certain parts of the Evil Dead series, like this movie. You know, with any piece of fiction, you have to make that suspension of disbelief, but it's not always easy. Even the stuff you enjoy, it's hard to not look at hypercritically. So what happens when you have something like this? You know, that's very nuts. That's very over the top. How do you do that? Now, me personally, I like horror when it doesn't make too many concessions to normality, right? I do wonder with this film, with it only having like a 64% positivity rating, I wonder if the insanity of this film was maybe a bridge too far for some audiences. And, you know, whether or not that bridge is washed out or bent up like it is in the Evil Dead movies, you know, that's up to you, I guess. One thing I will say about this movie that I have to walk kind of a razor wire with. I have always felt that horror gets the genre-wide bad rap for being, you know, just gory, brutal shock fests with nothing else, nothing of value, nothing of art, nothing of intellect. And, you know, obviously, of course, I don't think that's true genre-wide. But in the case of something like the original Evil Dead, and Evil Dead 2013, I can kind of see why it gets that reputation. These two movies, I think, you know, and just kind of more so than any like mainstream horror franchise, they're extremely mean-spirited, you know? There's something just so damn mean about the Kandarians, the Deadites. You know, there's just something evil about them. I talked about that a little bit in the Necronomicon episode, but it is one of the reasons that I think that it is also super effective horror, is that there is no redeeming quality to this evil. But that's just my opinion, and that's something that I've been thinking about for a while, and it makes me want to know, what do you think of Evil Dead 2013? Have you seen it? And if you have seen it, what do you think? Does it carry the torch for the Evil Dead series? Is it a good part of the kind of greater Evil Dead, Raimi, Campbell canon? You should let us know what you think of Evil Dead 2013 by reaching out to us at thefrightlabpodcast@gmail.com. We can all be found more or less every social media platform if you just look up The Fright Lab. Finally, you can find us on Discord. Again, just look for The Fright Lab. And, as always, The Fright Lab is written and researched by me, Lucas Yoakum, and it is produced and often co-hosted by the one and only Joseph Wren. We appreciate each and every one of you. We'll talk to you all again soon. So now go out, put on a scary movie, and have a happy October. We'll talk to you all soon.